Hello and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we publish the full interviews from our site's articles and sometimes release exclusive episodes. Alright, well here we are with Post-Burnout.com's final interview of 2025. I want to thank everyone who supported the website over the last few years, whether that was through donations, reading our articles, listening to our podcasts, telling your friends, rating or subscribing. All of that really helps more than you know. Independent websites like ours really live and die on the support of the people who enjoy it. So once more, I want to thank you all, and I don't know what 2026 holds in store just yet. Something good, I hope and pray, but whatever happens. I'll see you when I see you. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, the British singer-songwriter Luke Concannon discusses the inspiration behind his new politically charged album Midnight Bloom, which came out in November, his experiences travelling through Palestine and how this inspired a song on the album, the success of his band Nizlopi and the 20th anniversary of their #1 single JCB Song, supporting Ed Sheeran live, the importance of sincerity and community in a post-ironic and atomized world, and much more. Hey Luke, how's it going? Can
Aaron,
you hear me okay? Hey, it's lovely to meet you. Can you
hey,
hear me?
how's the form, man?
I'm very well, man. Yourself?
Oh, I'm grateful to talk to you. Thanks for doing this.
Absolutely, brother. There's a lot to talk about with Midnight Bloom, your latest record. Um, would it be fair to say this is your most, I guess, like political record that you put out so far?
Aaron, you're the man. I thank you for diving straight in. I know we're recording, but can I just have a really quick wee?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can have your quick. I will come back
I'm
and we'll
sorry.
sort that.
I'm,
No
I'm
worries, man.
sorry.
No
I
worries, man.
just I'm a bit delirious because we got back from Europe like a couple of days ago and we got the baby and we're just swinging things around. So I'm going to
No
be
worries,
one
man.
second. All right, so
Do what you gotta do.
okay. And you can eat some of my chocolate while I'm gone.
Oh, cool. Sick.
Boom.
Perfect. So hope that was good.
And how are you doing, Aaron? Are you good?
Very well. Yourself, Luke?
I'm guessing like you love doing this thing because is it like a passion project for you to kind of learn about what makes art work
Absolutely.
and what sustains people in a mad world?
Yeah, no, I think with a lot of people it's crazy because I've been fortunate enough to speak with artists of varying degrees of success, some fledgling, some who've maintained success kind of after I've interviewed them, others who kind of are just people at different points in their career. And what I find very interesting is that seemingly like ubiquitously, it's like very few people are actually doing it as a full-time career or can afford to. It's like everyone seems to have music or art or acting or whatever their artistic drive is, kind of as a second job or something that they're trying to build momentum for, but it's just very precarious at the moment, you know?
Hmm? Yeah, so it seems like you kind of want to respect the way that sort of story and learn about how people are navigating it.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it's an interesting thing to highlight because I think so many people don't look behind the scenes a little bit. You know, they kind of just they consume what's put out for them, but they don't really think about the person making the music or the art that they enjoy, or kind of the struggle it is to kind of get that. You know?
Well, yeah, I think it's an important thing because I think all of us, it's an important question for all of us, right? Because we all have to feed the bank account, etc. We also have to kind of feed our hearts and our spirit, whatever you want to call it. And so it's a question for everyone, right? Like, what is it that gives us life?
Yeah. And what's it for you, Luke? Why do you kind of persist with music and art after all this time?
Yeah. Um, you know, I think, it's sort of my family's language. Um, I think, in a way, I don't think it's necessarily a coincidence that, both you and I have like Irish culture.
Yeah.
um, and that we're both interested in art and maybe resilience. Um, and so for me, I grew up with music and family being two just integral things, and we'd have these family parties all through my life. Before I was born, where people would sing, play tunes. Um, I think my dad's generation in England, because his parents came over from Ireland, that they were just beginning to sort of want to reclaim the culture. Because my grandparents were sort of often ashamed of being Irish because there was some. It was like it wasn't a welcome
Sure.
identity or culture, and there's this sense, like with a lot of English people feel now that, oh, our folk music is naff, right? Morris dancing, or like I once went down to the shore. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of, people think it's sort of naff, but my parents' generation were reclaiming that. That was the folk revival, right? That they'd witnessed, bands like Planksty, or the Bossy Band, or whatever. And so to me, there's a spirituality to it, as in, like, when we sing songs that our ancestors have sung, it's like a rope, in the same way that religion is like uh, um, the rituals, like whatever it is, like communion or whatever. That if you do that, it's also something that your nan did, and your great
Mhm.
grandfather, and people have done for hundreds and hundreds of years. Um, so yeah, I think I've persisted with it because it's part of the heritage, links me to the ancestors, and I really believe that art uh, can be transformative if we're really telling the truth.
And speaking of which, like with this new album that's out, Midnight Bloom, would it be fair to call this your most political record to date?
Wow. Well, I mean, in a way, like, yeah. Uh, and that's, I think it is. Um, and everything I've put out under my name. So I put out a record called Give It All, um, about 9 years ago, and then 4 years ago, Ecstatic Bird in the Burning. Um, yeah, they're all pretty political, but I haven't thought of it, but I think you're probably right, because I mean, a song like Stick Together is just like a full-on rant about the state of the world, and A Woman is Sacred is like an issue song. Yeah, it probably is. Um, I mean, in a way, the darker things get on the world stage, the more urgent it is to talk about it, um, and the more liberating it is to talk about it. And there's also this mad thing where, if I actually face the darkness, so in that song "Stick Together," which is the second song on the album, it's right off the bat, it's like, we've got 100 years and then fires. Human beings are burning in the mire. I suckle on TV like vampires. I want to take the ring to Mordor, save the Shire. It's about, there's lyrics about fascism and about um, genocide. And, but yet going into the darkness, like, the light has to come. If you really go into the darkness, there's nowhere else to go but to say, well, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah.
What is the antidote to authoritarianism? It's loving the hell out of each other and growing things that um are all about, you know connecting, real authentic connection, rather than um Instagram.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's something that's interesting because, like, I guess, like when, like you start kind of like getting notoriety in the music world. I mean, it was kind of just prior to the explosion of social media and things like that. How do you find it's different now being a musician to say when like Nizlopi first got big or things like that?
Um, yeah, I suppose we were, our heroes were people like Ani DeFranco, The Roots, um, Rory McLeod, who would, in a way, he'd be like Arnie's like English big brother, very similar sort of activist folk, very like integrity is very important. Immortal Technique, these are all kind of independent artists. While the Roots were signed to a major, but the others are all fully independent, and they all made their way just by playing live. That was all they had. They just gigged a lot. And we were in a period of time where that was still true. All we had was gigging, a mailing list. We'd invite people to sign the mailing list, and then we'd email those people, say, thanks for being there. Next time we play London is on the 5th of October, and, and, like when we
I remember
started
those
out,
with the old school like Nokia phones. Remember where it was like you get charged, I don't know, 20 cent or whatever for a for like each text or something. So
right,
it wasn't the great, but it was what it was.
right, right.
Yeah, so
And,
that
and
was 2005.
right. And when we were starting out, and we started gigging and, recording that first album, what, 2001. And it was literally all we had. But there was that kind of a window there in the music industry through the 90s and certainly like through to 2005 where it was like gig, 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 email. And then slowly like MySpace came onto the scene, and that was really an effective way of sharing music. But I think one thing I find a bit different now is that um it's probably not really possible to grow a music kind of career, to grow traction as a musician now without a pretty solid social media um
Yeah.
presence and skill and putting time into it. And um I don't really like it, and I have a lot of questions about it. Um just like it's such a toxic form, right? Like if I do post something on social media, it's designed to kind of hack me and make me like stay on it, right? So we end up with a lot of people who are having to base their career, part of their career, about around being on social media, and then kind of how do we use it and not be used by it? And I
Yeah.
think for most of us, that's a really hard thing to not be used by it.
No, absolutely. I think like a lot of people even something simple like someone goes, okay, I'm gonna post this update, I'm gonna post this video, and then they just get distracted by whatever it is that's just popping up, and you're like, what was I meant to do again? You're there for like 20 minutes or something. You're like, wait, what was I doing again? So I think like it has all of our attention just completely sucked. You know what I mean? And it's not even like it's an interesting thing because like it's not like you're even being active. It's not like you're engaging your brain when you're on social media, but at the same time, you're not resting either. You're just in this weird kind of limbo.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a really important thing. And so we end up, and it's so difficult. Like where I've come down with it is my commitment is to using it and not being used by it. And I
Yeah.
encourage all of us to do the same thing. Like, what does it take to, I mean, I think if you don't have to be on it, don't be on it. Like, I think unfortunately it is necessary in my field. Um, in that, like, like before the releasing this album, I worked really hard with a social media marketer friend, and we definitely sold, like 30 more tickets in Birmingham because of the work, So it's a way to get people in a room, it's a way to share the music. Um, but I think it's, the data is looking pretty clear that, um, you know, Trump wouldn't have happened without social media. And there was what 100 and something million American voters who were targeted by Russian bots in 2016 to sway
Okay.
that election. Um, Cambridge Analytica and Brexit, right? Like Brexit most likely wouldn't have happened without Meta, you know. So the rise of authoritarianism globally at this time, well, we need the opposite. We're facing climate breakdown, and we need real leadership, and instead we're getting this sort of rise in fascism, all being facilitated by social media. So I think we need to be so mindful and careful, and equally, um, I can't like just be one of these people who's like, well, I'm deleting all my accounts because
Yeah.
it's how the world unfortunately currently functions, you know?
It's an interesting thing that you talk about because I find it difficult to engage with, say, younger um people. So I'll say broadly anywhere between like say 15 to 25 and that kind of age range. I find it difficult to kind of gauge where they are politically because on the one hand, they seem quite socially conscious, socially aware, pro LGBTQ plus, uh pro disability rights, pro equality. But then on the other hand, I mean, you get these like people who are like, really pro like fascism, as you mentioned, like really nationalistic, jingoistic, and rah 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 and things like that. And so it's very hard for me to discern between are the kids going in a good direction or bad direction. It seems to me what I'm confident in saying is that I think kids today aren't kind of content with kind of middle of the road liberalism or conservatism anymore. They want
Mhm.
something more radical, but it's just like, will that go radically left or radically right? That's what's fearful, you know?
Right. And um and you know, what is it that how can we be growing communities where there's a good alternative? Because I think we
Yeah.
all myself, you know, I end up looking at my phone and it's stupid YouTube videos. The algorithm obviously knows that I'm gonna like, for example, watching a clip of Rocky Four.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I grew up with action films and you know like martial arts in my family, and so like I've got like a sort of weakness for that type of violent content, to be honest. Um,
Yeah.
and so we have to like, how can we grow spaces which are just more satisfying, right? Like, you know, if there's kids outside all playing games, running around, kids are going to want to do that more than they're going to want to play Candy Crush. But if there's no alternative, then we get captured. So I just wonder how we can just be growing, you know, nourishing alternatives to the bullshit. And you know, something I'm really interested in, and like a question I'm holding is like, what does it, what does the music of now look like? What is an evolution in the way we share music, um, that that is just really fun and liberating? Um, because in a way, I think live music is kind of losing out to Netflix and all these other things because, like, in a way, who wants to, you know, get a babysitter and pay €100 and, you know, trek across town to be in some echoey room and just sit there and just be like, oh, okay, I'm sort of, you know, hearing these songs that I like. Great. Like, in a way, we have to offer people something more satisfying,
Mhm.
um, that involves connection to each other. Like, you know, I wonder what it would be like if at a gig there's an understanding that at the beginning of the gig people are going to just talk to their neighbors, you know, or there's like a moment in the gig where it's like, okay, um, you know, we invite you to all like write in your journal some thoughts about this question or whatever, and then you talk to your neighbor about it. Um, you know, and we've been experimenting. Like Nizlopi did a gig in London because we just re-released our first album on vinyl,
Yeah.
and we to sort of celebrate that we had a gig in London in October, and we just in the middle of the gig we played like three really chilled out songs, totally acoustic in the crowd, And we said, probably most of us here are really tired and really need some peace. So, if you can, like, you could ask your neighbor or whatever if it's okay, but like, you could just like put your head on your neighbor's shoulder or like lean against the wall, or if you've got space, lay on the floor, and we're just gonna have like a deep relaxed section in the gig, like where
The
people just
meditative part, meditation.
chill,
Yeah.
just literally just let go of the stress. Um, I honestly think there's like a hunger for these sort of situations where there's real connection, like where we really sing together, or where people get heard. Um, because otherwise, the sort of seductive hooks of Netflix or Instagram or YouTube or whatever, it's just so easy to stay at home and be strung out on that stuff. How can we really meet the hunger in people's hearts for empowerment?
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, it's a fair question, and it's one that I don't really have an answer for, I guess. I do think the sort of I don't know. I think people kind of crave it. And actually, I think you saw that a lot during lockdown, during the COVID-19 lockdowns, was people just craving live experiences again, live events. And I think once things opened up and it got used to it in day to day, we started taking it for granted again. I don't know if you feel that way, but that's how it seems to me. Is that we're always like, God, I'd love to go to the cinema, or I'd love to go to a gig, and then now that those things are plentiful, we're kind of taking them for granted once more, you know. Which I'm not even necessarily bonus about. That's perhaps human nature, you know.
Right, right. It sounds like it sounds like you're, I don't know, are you wanting to see people kind of coming together more to to stand up for, the truth and integrity, and is that something that's important to you, or
Oh yeah, absolutely. Of course, I think yeah, I think like actually live events can be a great space to kind of share those ideas and to kind of get people together in sympathetic mind form. A lot of gigs and stuff you go to, it's like I think they can be spiritual retreats too. I just worried that people are taking them for granted after missing them, so bad during the COVID-19 lockdowns. I wonder now it's like, are we still appreciative of them, you know?
right, right. And I really wonder, like, um, the great Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Buddhist teacher, he said, uh, the 21st century needs to be a spiritual century if we're going to make it through it. And what he means by that is, my understanding is that a spiritual understanding is like, to quote the Beatles, it's like, I am you and you and me, and like we are all together. Like we can't we can't um get by unless there's a sense that we have a shared destiny and a shared responsibility. And when you look deeply, and when you have like some sort of spiritual practice, like you say, music can be a spiritual practice, or just being present or being kind or whatever. um I think we really need a depth of capacity like that to handle what we're going through. And a lot of the time, that the sort of becoming a cyborg, which is what a lot of the social media or device culture does,
Yeah.
it does the opposite of that. It makes us more shallow, more brittle. Um, so I really see that music can have a space, um, and in like you say, bringing people together. So, are you a Damien Dempsey fan? Have you ever seen his gigs?
Oh yeah, no, I haven't seen him live, but yeah, of course I know Dave Dempsey. I haven't actually got a chance to see him.
There was a documentary that came out maybe 5 years ago, and it looked at four different fans of his, like um, a recovering heroin addict, an Irish traveler, a homeless person, etc. And it just, he does like that thing in Dublin at Vicar Street where he does what, like 5 nights in a row or something
Yeah,
every around this time of year. He's probably doing it like tonight. I don't know.
yeah, it probably
Um,
is.
like just before Christmas,
Yeah.
and um, he, it's in his bones, that kind of Shanachie, like bardic, shamanic thing of, I mean, I'd seriously go see him live, because on record he's really good, but live he's great. Sorry, on some of the records he's really great too, but live he's great. And he's like leaning out into the crowd, and you've got all these like Irish rugby playing dudes who look like they would mess you up, who are all like crying and like singing
Yeah.
back to him like, "Love yourself today," like just this thing about we're all a bit fucked up. The
Mhm.
world is really fucked up, but there is something better than that in us that has got us this far and can continue to get us um through through the storms. And like you say, that can be a spiritual thing. It can just be a really meaningful, beautiful, life-giving activist quality. And that's what excites me about music, and why I want to keep doing it. And I am hungry for, like, the Nizlopi gigs. I think there's a lot of elements that made us um break through, but the whole ethic was like how to serve the people, to take risks and be brave. I mean, making high quality music was an ethic, and also just like how can we involve people? So, we'd be trying to get people singing from the first song. Um, we'd be improvising, um, as in like we're not just getting up there and repeating something. We're making something happen with people in the room, and then we'd invite people up on stage to improvise with us, right? So, one night we might end up with like one night in London, this like this amazing rapper RG of like South Asian descent. He just jumped up with us and was just throwing down in like a Cypress Hill fashion, just like fierce emceeing, and we were all like pogoing. And we never met. Like, he just jumped up. We didn't know. Like, he could have just got up on stage and just started screaming profanities, but he just smashed it. And
That's a risky role to take.
yeah, but that's it. Like, I think you know, go out on a limb. That's where all the blossom is. And I think I just want to. It's very uncomfortable, but just keep going out on a limb more and more. So, we just opened for Ed Sheeran's European tour. Just got back, and we were just having to find, like, how do we connect with these people who, it's a different crowd than we used to, right? I guess it's like a millennial or even Gen Z. I mean, he
Yeah.
has a broad swathe, right? There's people my age who are bringing their kids or even older, um, but they're there to see a pop star play pop bangers, and we've got a 45-minute opening slot. And how do we connect? And one night we just tried. We said, well, we're going to write a song with you tonight, right? So we're in Coventry. There's 10,000 people in an arena, and my brother John, the other half of the band, he just starts a riff on the bass. He's just making it up on the spot. I started just like singing, like, just flowing. You're like, we're here together. Never say never. We're gonna flow, go forever. Just like improvising, and
Yeah.
then and then like I got like I said to the one side of the room. I was like, da 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 da. Okay, sing that, everybody. So they're like, da 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 da, and then on this side of the room, let's go, Carv. It's like da 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 da. Let's go, Carv. Da da. So suddenly there's like new things happening, right? Like the bass is new, the words and the melody is new. This thing's new, and we're doing it together. And everyone can feel it, because the truth has this sort of ontological power. Like, you feel it in your
Mm.
bones. And so that is what I think all of us are going for, right? Like, that quality of presence and togetherness, and like, this is it. This is life. This is what we're here for. Can we enjoy it, and can we be brave together, right? Because it takes some courage for the crowd to be not just be like, no, I'm not fucking singing.
Right.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think I just want just more and more to lean into that. Like, my dream gig would be somehow to take that improvisational quality, and then, like I say, like bringing people up from the crowd, getting out into the crowd, leaning more and more into what do we, the people, want to do. how can we, the people, make the changes that we want to see, and really participating in the great turning away from the sort of death orientation we're on towards the life stuff that we're all hungry for. We all want the same things, we just don't know quite how to do it yet.
Perfect.
I've had two
I'm
coffees
trying
this morning, Aaron.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely. I think I'm on the same wavelength. I've probably got the same quantity too. I'll try and take up too much of your time. You've been very gracious. I do want to ask a bit more about this new album, so Midnight Bloom. One thing I was very interested in. So, like, the one thing you can't ignore when you listen to the record is the discussions about Palestine and Ukraine. Um, I was wondering if maybe you could talk a little bit because you have your own personal background with Palestine. So maybe if you could talk about that from your perspective of actually looking at what's happening there in the last, I guess, 2 years now at this point.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I when Nizlopi split up in 2008, um, I hitchhiked to Palestine from England, and I volunteered in the West Bank. Um, and you know, it takes so much skill to talk about these things in a way that is useful to anybody to talk about it. My experience was, going from um, Jerusalem, um, being in Israel and then crossing that huge separation barrier into the West Bank. It looked a bit like felt a bit like traveling from Manhattan into Baghdad, as if the two places were right next to each other.
Hmm.
Um, the sort of ancient Arabic world, and then the more modern sort of Eurocentric kind of world. And it was so striking to see that those things right next to each other. And to see, how much power was residing in Israel, and how much um, alienation and suffering was there in the West Bank. Um, and we're just all experiencing the sort of hurricane of these times is the sort of cascade of intergenerational trauma that we're all kind of sweating off us right now, right? Like, um, I grew up a lot in the Irish side of my family. I vibe a lot with Irish folks, Irish friends, and
Yeah.
um, and you see, like digging where we stand. I see that whole combination of the gifts in the lineage and in the culture, like this sort of empathy, the sensitivity, the warmth, the hospitality, the humility, the creativity, imagination, fun, and then the wounds in the culture, like often like a lack of self-confidence, or like an inferiority complex, an anxiety, a mania, sometimes like a workaholism. And so all of these sort of things are interrelating, right? Like Israeli folks, Jewish folks are carrying huge amounts of trauma, um, and it's playing out um, in Gaza in horrific ways, and so it's just like, what is it that actually can transform that shit into something life-giving? Because we're either gonna all get taken down by our ghosts, or we're gonna have to find some way of like transforming them. And
I,
and to me, it's just like, how do we do that in a way where um we have compassion for everyone involved, rather than seeing it as goodies and baddies?
Yeah, I think unfortunately we're seeing like a lot of dehumanization of people now, and it's like we're seeing that now how that's I think that's a huge principle. Like I've always thought, whether you're like religious, spiritual, agnostic, or completely secular, one thing we should all have at our core foundation is humanitarianism. But I feel like we're kind of losing that a lot, and I don't know why this is. but I feel like people just aren't treating other people as human beings. And you see that now actually just recently as we spoke, the Bondi Beach shooting, happened just the other day. I think this is like just kind of like it's just a sick kind of world we're living in. I don't know. And I agree with what you're saying. Like it shouldn't be simplified as goodies and baddies. It should be, like everyone's a human being, and we should try and go for the minimum amount of suffering that we can. But it seems like the institutions that be aren't allowing that to happen. It seems like it's only getting get worse. I mean, we're looking at like Venezuela now and things like that. It's just like I just doesn't see where it ends.
Yeah, it sounds like you're feeling some like a little bit of despair because you want peace and you're not seeing how that's actually going to happen. Is that
Yeah, I
close?
think so, but it's not the spare for me. It's not the spare for me personally, because like I ultimately won't be affected that much, so I don't want to pretend like oh it's going to affect me. But like it does depress me to see people dying and conflict like this and real like I don't know like medieval mindsets kind of still persisting personally.
Yeah, yeah. Um, you know, um, Stephanie and I, my wife and I, we live in a yurt in the woods just here in Vermont. So
Yeah.
it's a 20-foot diameter round house. And um back in the summer, Steph woke at about 2 a.m. She jumped out of bed, grabbing our 6-month-old baby, and said, "That is the biggest spider I've ever seen in my life." And there was this dirty big spider right next to um, she and our baby, like, and so I grew up a bit arachnophobic too, so I had to take some deep breaths and sort of gather myself up, and then after like half an hour of like chasing this thing around around the like I got a dustpan and brush and like you know grabbed it and I was just like shaking it so it couldn't get a grip and then threw it outside. Um,
Yeah.
but what immediately happened is we go into a fear response and Steph grew up in a like a Christian pacifist tradition, a Mennonite tradition, and I really resonate with that tradition and I practice in a Buddhist community too. So I'm sort of determined not to kill. I'm a vegan. And yet the first reaction I had about this spider, which I mean, the worst that's it was a it's a we didn't know what it could do to us, but you can't get none of them up here like are deadly. And but my first thing was like,
Mhm.
kill it. Just kill it. I'm scared. I'm scared so I want to kill it.
Yeah.
So if two committed pacifists with a spider that we basically know isn't going to really do us any harm, really, like it'd be probably like a wasp
Harm.
sting. Um, if we can so quickly flip to just kill it, it gives me a lot of compassion for it gives me a lot of compassion for people who are in war zones and where the violence, has been building, the tension has been building. Because from a distance, any one of us can say, like, well, you know, Israel has so much more firepower. They have so much more power. Um, you know, the Palestinian people have been so traumatized. It's such an unjust situation. All of that's true, and I can also have compassion for the fact that most of us, when we feel threatened, even if it's by something that has a lot less power than us or someone who has a lot less power than us,
Mhm.
it's so easy to get caught up in the like, just kill, just get rid of the threat thing. Um, and I don't say that to justify anyone's action. I'm just trying to understand how we all get into these, like you say, medieval mindsets and like, how do we get out of them? I think we do need, the inner work, the inner clarity of like, well, do I want to kill things? Do I want to kill people? You
Yeah.
know, do I when the chips are down? what are my values and what are my practices, and how can we get together. I'm so grateful for being in a Buddhist practice group where we meditate, we read, we study, and um we learn how to calm ourselves down. Um
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah, again, like how do we get together, learn how to trust each other. um we saw it took 800 years in the north of Ireland for there to be um the peace, the quality of peace that there is now. So it's possible, and just how can we keep practicing that?
Yeah. One final thing, I try and take up too much of your time. I just want to ask actually about, we're talking a bit about humanism there. I was wondering, do you find that people have lost touch with their humanity, or is that just me being melodramatic?
Mm,
Because I don't want to impose that on you if you don't agree with it. It's just I just that's how my feeling. I feel like a lot of the issues we're having in the world now comes from people not really respecting the autonomy of other human beings.
yeah. um I mean, the examples you gave, like Ukraine, Palestine, Venezuela. Um, yeah, I wonder, like, um, yeah, I mean, all three of those are super connected to authoritarianism, right? Like,
Yeah.
you've got very authoritarian leader in Russia, Israel, and the US. Um, and that's all connected to the stuff we've been talking about with social media, and like alienation and inequality. Um,
And
but
atomization too, yeah.
oh, what was that?
And atomization as well, yeah. People
There you
just
go.
feeling so
Huge.
atomized from each other, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I have a lot of cause for hope because I see, people willing to do therapy in a way that like hasn't been there at all. Like I think there's an explosion in introspection. Um, and people listening to podcasts or audio books or whatever. um I know that reading has been affected by the internet. People read less, but it does give me hope that there is this sense of, there was that sort of moment after George Floyd's murder where people were thinking, well, shit, did we really deal with racism in the 1960s? I guess
Mm.
not. um so I do have hope that people are being called, like this sort of conversation we're having now. We might not have had this conversation 20 years ago.
Yeah,
Um, so in a way, we're being forced to face the shit. Um, and if we can say, well, how can I change, rather than like all those bad people, why don't they change? Right? That's not going to do
yeah.
anything. But like, how can I change? How can we be in community in a way that is generative? I'm excited by that. Yeah, Carl Jung said, humanity will make it if enough people are willing to do the inner work. Or, I mean, work can be such a dry thing, but have the courage to face the suffering and help transform it. And we need each other paradoxically to do that inner work. Um, so yeah, so I invite folks to, you know, whatever community that is life giving. Like when I was in the UK, I would go to Quaker meetings. I'm in a, I'm in a, um, Sangha in the lineage of Thich Nhat Hanh. So if people want to find a practice group, you can go to plumvillage.com, and there's like find a local practice group. And it's non-religious. It's more like a mindfulness practice. So,
Mm.
I found like it's not exclusive. Like I can both go to church and practice mindfulness in community.
Sure.
It's not like one is like, no. Um, but my hope is that more and more we do that. And, I want to offer that in the music too. So I think the political quality in this new album is about it is about insight, right? Like when we see what's happening and we speak about it, that is political, but not party political. It's just about raising consciousness.
Perfect. One final thing I wanted to ask Luke, and I promise this will be the last thing and I'll let you go on your day. Um, just the New Year's almost upon us, but this is the 20-year anniversary of JCB Song. I had two questions regarding that. One, does it feel like it's been 20 years? And the second thing is, we were talking earlier about kind of decentralization of the media. I remember when JCB Song came out, it was kind of like everywhere. I remember on like TMF and Nickelodeon and just seeing that music video everywhere. Do you think like if you were to release that now, it would have the chance of virality that it had, or because like people talk about the democratization of music, but I think one thing we are losing is centralization too to some degree. So how do you feel about all that, just it being 20 years, and does it feel that long to you?
Mm. There's something about music which is like a time machine. You know, we've got a Patreon, like oh, you're frozen. You can still. Oh, there you go. We've got a like a
No, no,
Luke.
sorry, gotta go. Yeah, we keep freezing every now and again.
We've got we've got a Luke Concannon and Nizlopi Patreon. Um, you can download my new album there for £3, people, and you get monthly unreleased stuff. Um, New music every month. Um, but you know, doing that, I had to go through old mini disc recordings of Nizlopi songs that we never released. Uh, literally 20-year-old songs, and some of them I literally haven't heard for 20 years. But hearing them, there's something kind of timeless about music where it feels like it exists sort of in the eternal somehow. So 20 years have gone by and I'm listening to it and it really feels like now, and I'm touching something that's vital and alive now. Whereas, I think if I read a newspaper article from 2005, it would feel really different. It'd be like, oh yeah, I remember, I
Yeah.
remember Gordon Brown did that or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah. I think it was actually
something about
still Tony Blair then too.
oh, Tony Blair, you're right, it was.
I think Gordon Brown was
Um,
2007.
there you go, well done. Um,
I
so
think so. If I could be wrong.
no, I think you are right. You are right. Yeah. So in a way, yeah, that it doesn't feel like 20 years musically, but yeah, historically, a lot of water has gone under the bridge. Um, but in terms of your question about, uh, the song and whether it would land now, we've always got to be in the moment that we're in, and art needs to speak to the moment we're in. It landed then because it was fresh and it was appropriate to the time and place. Um, and yeah, that's what we have to do every time. I mean, I think if the Beatles released "She Loves You," yeah, 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 now it wouldn't land. It was vital at that particular moment.
Yeah.
Um, but one thing people like, I coach songwriters, right? That's one thing I offer is I help people get clear on their purpose and their vision, and then we get on a call like every couple of weeks and help them with their journey. And a lot of people are like, oh, I've not had a hit, so my songs aren't that good. Um, but JCB, we we released that on our first album, Half These Songs Are About You, in 2002, and it
Mhm.
wasn't a hit till 2005. Um, we released it as a single in the summer of 2005, and it sold 600 copies. And then the video started getting traction online, and then we released it in the December and it sold 600,000 copies. So um I think I just like, everyone has got, if you're passionate about music, you've definitely got the potential to write a song that connects with a lot of people. um and there's just so many other factors that are involved in making something a hit, right? So we had a really strong live show where we've been growing it, and we were playing 200 gigs a year or whatever. Um And then we had a team. So we had someone taking it to radio, someone taking it to television. Um, we had, a publisher who was talking to the music industry and press and radio. And so we had all of these factors, a really strong video, and then a moment where like it could go viral because in a way, the JCB song was one of the first times that people could send each other a video and say, check out this song. Right now, it's what everyone does. But at the time,
Yeah.
like we made a website that had the video on it. So you could send an email saying, oh, I love this song, you know, I play it to my kids at night. And um, so in a way, we were like the first YouTube band before YouTube existed, right? YouTube came online in 2006. It was a hit in
Yeah.
2005. So there were so many factors that allowed us to break through, and I think all any of us can do is do our best and be in the moment we're in, and yeah, see how we can create in this moment.
Perfect. Thanks very much for your time, Lucas. Is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up? Anything I failed to cover that you think people should know?
Mm. Just I'm really proud of this album, Midnight Bloom, and you know, we just did this tour with Ed Sheeran, and everyone's been really excited, right? Like all our community has been like, I want to come. You know, we're playing. You know, we were playing like in Munich. We played to 20,000 people. In Manchester, 23,000 people, and you know all the press and the buzz and everything. Um, and I think we've been very conditioned as a culture to run after fame and power and wealth and sensual pleasure and all that rock and roll stuff. Um, but truth is where it's at, and I just feel really happy to, you know, have put this album out that is as true and good as I can make it, and um, you know, on the tour, Bird were opening show, Lisa Canny's super group, you know, trad, all women trad act, and her mum phoned her after the first gig and was like, what was it like to play your first arena gig with Ed Sheeran? What was the best thing about the day? And she was like, oh, holding Luke's baby Oren, right? Like she held our baby, and
Yeah.
she just was in love with him. He's a little dude. And so I just think we need to remember what actually matters and where real happiness comes from. Um, you know, doing what feels right, doing our best, being in as much integrity as we can be in, being in connection, you know, nurturing children, nurturing community. Because we can get distracted by all the big flashing lights and forget why we're really here. So, um, and you know, why I'm here is to make the best music I can and to be, you know, a happy person in community. So, um, uh, that's what I've learned from making this record.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time, Luke. It was lovely chatting with you, and best of luck with everything, and have a great 2026, my friend.
Aaron, it's great to talk to you. Thank you for listening to me rant on. I feel a bit embarrassed. I just had a lot of coffee, as I said.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. We're available wherever you get your podcasts, so we hope that you enjoyed and would consider subscribing, giving it a like on YouTube, or a rating anywhere else. We also have some exclusive episodes only available on Spotify, which features interviews with the likes of Kim Deal, Ron Mail of Sparks, Jacob Slater of Wonder Horse, Maria Kelly, Gavin Friday, and many more. So check those out if you're so inclined. Otherwise, thank you for listening and see you next time.